Hello, thank you for joining us. We will begin the webinar in just a minute as we wait for everyone to get logged in. You're automatically muted and your video is not visible. Please take the next few moments to adjust your audio and screen size to your liking. If you have any challenges, please send them through the Q&A button or the chat. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to ReUSE Minnesota's Connecting with Your Customers Throughout this time. We are so happy to have you with us today. We have an amazing group of people on our panel today. That all of them are experiencing exactly what you're experiencing, and they've found creative ways to connect with their customers, and we're happy to have them today. Before I forget, we also have a webinar happening next week about how to reopen your business after stay-at-home orders are slowly lifted. So you can register for that as well. So without further ado, and I should say my name is Jenny Kedward. I'm the president of ReUSE Minnesota. Happy to have you today. And first off, we have Kristin McCoy from Rethink Tailoring, a brand new storefront in South Minneapolis. Kristin's been doing amazing things with clothes for many years. We're happy to have you with us today. Take it away.
Hey guys, so I guess just a little bit about my business. Rethink Tailoring, our mission is to get as many garments that already exist back into rotation. So normally we would be doing tailoring, where we specialize in rescuing old forgotten items from people's closets. We do a lot of creative repair. And then we were expanding into a storefront so we can actually teach people what I do. So, you know, we had a full list of classes that we were going to kick off, and our grand opening was March 14th, and we closed the next day. So basically, like within a few days of us closing, I actually got the stomach flu and was just totally down for the count and super foggy. And then after I got through that, then that's when I was able to see all of these people sending me information about masks. And then the hospitals announced that they needed masks. So that the timing was so right, because I was obviously a little bit lost. We had to cancel all our tailoring appointments, cancel all of our classes, and then just be rethinking how we were going to bring the business online. But I had a very clear goal of what I needed to do, and then I could feel like I was helping with something. So I started sewing, and then also I know that some people are more visual learners, so I started recording tutorials of how to make masks, just to help support people that were making them in the community, and especially while in production mode, if I found tricks of ways to speed up production or things that are frustrating during production that I could share, like, well, here's how you can do it instead. I started recording tutorials on things like that as well. And we are still in mask making mode. We started selling to the community, which I vastly misunderestimated how much of a need there was going to be. I had been working on plans to make masks to sell, and then the CDC announced, and it was just, it was wild. So I've never sewn so much in my entire life. I love sewing, so luckily that's been good. But there's been some late nights And this week I've been prioritizing more making masks for donation, just as a personal promise. I wanted to make sure that I am donating just as many masks as I'm selling, just because, you know, I felt bad selling masks to begin with, but, you know, I want this business to still be open by the time all this, you know, by the time we get through this. So it just kind of made sense, especially since clients were like, hey, when are you going to start making? But in order to keep it true to my business, all of my fabrics are either secondhand or surplus fabrics. So luckily I had a huge stash of surplus fabrics that I have purchased over the years from SR Harris. They're a jobber in the industry, and so they buy leftovers and remnants from the mills that don't get sold. So it's not the most eco-friendly, but it's still eco-friendly. So I was able to use all surplus, and I have been working in some repurposing into the masks as well. So yeah, and the other parts, so besides the tailoring and revamping old things from people's closets, and specifically I only work on things that are 1 year or older, just to help people dig into the back corners of their closet to the items that they don't know what to do, but they can't let go of. And then we do a lot of creative repair, and then the more of the rental part of our business, we will be having a sewing lounge so people can pay by the hour to use our equipment. So if you don't have a space at home to be able to use, to have a sewing setup or to have a machine, people can pay by the hour to use our equipment, and we can help them through projects. If they have a few questions, then we're there to guide them as well. So I think that was hopefully everything.
That's great. And I can tell you, my mask that I made because of one of your tutorials.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
it definitely helped.
That's great. Yeah,
so,
that's been really encouraging to just hear feedback from my community and people being like, yay, thanks, you know, that was so easy to learn from. And it's like, you know, you don't know when you're putting it out there, like you don't have that face-to-face interaction. So that's been really nice. I've been getting so much great feedback from the community, especially as because my brand is so much of an extension of me and my passions, I have opened up a little bit more just about, you know, just putting like some personal, not like really personal, but just like some things on there so they can get more of like a feel of the brand, because it is so much of an extension of me. So there was a couple times where I was like, you know, if I'm having a hard day, I'm not going to hide this and only show the fun stuff, because that's not realistic. And I want people to know, like, it's okay to have hard days too, and know that we're not alone in this, which, you know, it's kind of comforting, but also not, because it's, you know, it's not a great situation, but, you know, we're all in it together, and everybody's doing the best that they can and making it through.
Such a good point. Being vulnerable in this time is humbling, but definitely appreciated. I think it shows that you care.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, and we'll keep you on for any questions that people have too. Next up, we have Julie Kearns, and I'm so happy to have Julie joining us on this webinar. Julie has a bunch of different experience in storefront, online shopping, pop-up sales, everything you can imagine in the reuse world, and is such a great networker. So we'll learn a lot definitely from Julie. So Julie, you're ready to go.
Excellent. Thanks, Jenny.
Yes.
Yep, I'm Julie Kearns. I started Junket, Tossed and Found officially in 2010. It was actually appropriate for this conversation. It was an outcropping of a personal crisis, and I had to find a way to pivot financially. I had to find a way to pivot professionally, and I wanted to do it in a way that aligned with my values, and Junket was the result. So while most people have known us as primarily a retail entity, our brand has always been about basically finding ways to eliminate barriers for reuse in daily life. So to reduce demand for new manufacturing, to reduce waste, and to increase ease of access. And so I landed in 2011, sitting on the floor of my basement, just ready to just like poke myself in the eye, because I was listing things on eBay and I didn't see a purpose for it. Really thinking about, hey, how could I be helpful? How could this add value? What does this look like? And so from kind of that point forward, we've been focused on how, on adapting to whatever the needs are, adapting to what the market looks like. And so for me, COVID has, obviously it's had an impact. The process of pivoting and figuring out how we're going to do things differently within this new set of constraints is a creative problem solving skill set that I'm pretty comfortable with. And so we were actually in the process of gearing up for a relaunch. We had moved our business in November into a space on University Avenue. I was having ongoing conversations with the landlords. We were on a verbal lease, and we had done a big sale in January that had been really exciting. We had decided that our model here was going to be monthly pop-ups, helping boomers empty their basements, and then some community space for all circled around reuse. So community development around reuse, makers and supporting makers who wanted to do more work in reuse, setting up we had a co-working model that Grant was involved in for professionals where all of the materials and supplies would have been sourced via reuse. So that's, I really want to, I've been joking and talking, I guess not joking, about hashtag mainstream reuse for a few years now. And a piece of the work that for me is really related is climate change and mapping, really getting granular with the carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, so production emissions from manufacturing, et cetera, and mapping that to the practice of reuse. And we know that this is a huge climate mitigation opportunity, which is why I wanted to start practicing it and start to implement it in communities. So obviously we can't do big social sales and there is no real demand for co-working right now. Obviously, it's not safe to be around each other. So within the last few weeks, we didn't have a written lease yet, so we've renegotiated with the landlord, chose a much smaller space that is more amenable to a new business model. Like Kristin, we have gotten into the mask business, but on junkets, and we've always been about community organizing and rallying. And so we launched a mask project where we invited people to participate and engage however they were skilled. So it doesn't necessarily mean sewing it. We have people that are cutting and prepping. We have people that are routing and driving. We have people that are donating materials. But our goal was to have the masks be made using 100% reuse, which is junkets. Basically, design thinking around reuse is a key piece of what we do. So we've had over 200 people sign up. We have had, as of a week ago, we'd had more than 4,000 masks donated by members of our community into their own areas. So everybody was kind of geolocated and grouped with each other in zip codes and communities. As that has continued, we're about 6 weeks in now, we have been fielding requests for masks for purchase. And so, I've been talking about wanting to mainstream reuse for years now. There really hasn't been demand. And this need has created that demand. So we have some wholesale orders going out. We haven't yet put masks up for sale on shopjunket.com. That will be happening soon. We'll be doing a buy one, give one there. And our goal is to, with the business side of it, to solve multiple issues, because right now we also have an economic situation, right? So we're really working on hiring people who are maybe disadvantaged communities. The Somali Women's there's a Somali American Women's Action Center is going to be, we're going to have them working on some of the masks for us and really networking into organizations where there's a need and to individuals where there's a need. And so we're looking at scale. I'm having a conversation with a distributor out on the West Coast who has a company out on the East Coast that wants to put masks in vending machines. So my goal will be figuring out how we can scale this and really engage in a conversation around our supply chains aren't coming from China anymore. They're coming from our communities. And if we have materials and talent coming from our communities, the price point is going to be a little different than what people are accustomed to, and we've got a really good reason to talk about that right now. So, I'm hopeful that we can really have some impact across multiple fronts while continuing to donate masks into the community.
Great. Thank you, Julie.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I always get goosebumps when you talk.
Okay.
Community, community, community. Love it.
Thanks.
All right. And I didn't mention at the beginning, if you do want to ask any questions, please type them in the chat bar and I'm monitoring questions. You can do that through the main chat function, or there's a Q&A function as well, and I'll be able to see both. You can ask any of our panelists questions. Okay. Moving on to Kate Hersey from the Minnesota Tool Library, which I'm a proud member of for the St. Paul Tool Library. So Kate's going to talk about what they're doing to be flexible in these times. Take it away,
Yes.
Kate.
Thanks. So MTL is a membership-based, volunteer-driven nonprofit, and we provide tools, training, and then shared workspace so individuals can fix their stuff and fix the world. We have 2 branch locations, 4 part-time staff, and over 1,100 annual members. So our business model is really one that's centered on sharing. So whether that's waste reduction from shared consumption, or library rental, reuse and repair of tools that are already out in the world, our makerspace, and then DIY classes, it's really all core to our mission of reducing waste and empowering individuals and creating more resilient communities. So to that end, our relationship with our members, our customer base, it's more than transactional, and that connection and our services are certainly much harder to maintain virtually. So we have been blessed to be considered an essential business, and so we've been able to maintain some semblance of normalcy in this time. But like many of you, we're not immune to the financial trauma of COVID on our business model. So just about all of our different revenue streams have taken a hit. Our annual membership fees account for 60 to 80% of our annual budget. And historically, April through June are our heaviest months. So both for new members, and since our model is based on that annual cycle, for renewals as well. Our traditional summer outreach season, where we'd be chatting up the library at the Friends Plant Sale or at this or that community festival, has been canceled. Summer is canceled. And our members personally, as they start feeling that financial pinch, we're going to expect fewer renewals, lower membership levels, because our fees are based on a sliding scale. And then more requests for scholarships. And apart from membership, which for us is a huge piece, we had to cancel all of our Q2 and Q3 classes. And so we're planning a very full Q4 calendar to help mitigate some of that loss. We intentionally set that goal back in March so we wouldn't have to yo-yo our plans as new recommendations and rules came out from the CDC, the health department, and our local government. And I think that's something that has been that long distance planning, playing that long game has been something that's really important, especially because this is a ever-changing world we're living in. And that's something that I think has been really important for our members and our customers, and just for our business model, really thinking long-term. So we're not trying to take stock this week, what can I do the next week and forward. The Tool Library also lost some special event and some sponsorship revenue. And since there's little to no foot traffic in our buildings, in fact, in St. Paul, our building's on lockdown since the corner tenants aren't open. That brick and mortar tool sale revenue is effectively a wash for us. And then last but not least, we made the customer service decision to waive all late fees during this period. So that's yet another revenue stream that's hurting. It probably sounds painfully familiar to many of you, but there is a silver lining. it won't last forever. There is a way to mitigate those losses. And making that shift is pretty tricky. So short-term, long-term planning, operationally, MTL made the decision to kind of first and foremost prioritize and protect our staff. And that meant their health, their safety, but also their comfort level. We really made the decision to serve all of our clients and our members in a cautious and responsible manner, and one that was based on facts. So really making sure that we're making data-driven decisions, being transparent in all of our processes. So at any given time, all of our staff and our members knew, hey, this is what we're doing, or this is what we're thinking of doing. And we were really, really clear in that and why we're doing it. And then the last piece was to see what we could do to leverage this unique opportunity to build our brand and make our organization stronger. And I think that's something that every business can do, even if they can't open their doors quite yet. So at MTL, we started with data. We started digging deep into our financial projections, looking at reputable health and safety procedures and different protections we could implement, surveying our staff and our members about their needs and their preferences. And we decided that as our infection vector or transmission liability was low, we started with implementing disinfection procedures, reducing touch points, things like having staff pull items from shelves where our members would traditionally do it themselves, encouraging our volunteers, many of whom are older, to stay home, really kind of encouraging but yet keeping optional social distancing. In that realm, we decided to offer class vouchers to people who had programs with us in that March timeframe, so that anyone who didn't feel comfortable coming could just not come, no questions asked, and we issued them a voucher versus a refund so that we could bring them back, waiving all of our late fees, letting people keep their tools out longer. So then we moved to by appointment, so we could better control the number of people in our space at any given time. We provided staff PPE, one of the first donations to our Face Masks for First Responders campaign. Was specifically written out that these 4 masks in particular are for our staff, which is fabulous. And then we followed that with a reduction in open hours, and that was to allow any virus to die on surfaces that we might not be able to disinfect. That also gave our staff a reprieve and allowed them to work more remotely. So one of our staff members in particular used public transit and didn't feel comfortable with that in light of COVID. Others had kids at home now, and so really trying to be flexible to kind of this new life situation. And though our open hours at that point were reduced by about 3/4, that additional time was leveraged for admin backlog, with every organization has, and a unique work plan was created for every member of staff. So a combination of remote work, some elected to do on-site work, but do it alone in the shop. So really kind of working with each person and finding something that would work for them, and it wasn't necessarily at their standard hours or their standard number of time, but for us, it was really important that we said, hey, and if you have a 15-hour work week, we are paying you for a 15-hour work week, whether you're putting in 5 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is this week, we've got you covered, because that was just really important for us. The last kind of stage of operational shift that MTL had, we did where we closed our workshop. So that had been by appointment, and we found that it was just too hard to keep track of every surface that that member might have touched for disinfecting. So we closed the workshop, and then we instituted contactless pickup, which I know is on a lot of people's minds. We were lucky, we already had some systems and some software in place that helped facilitate the logistics of that. But it has required training, it's required tweaks, reminders to get it to work well. We're using a lot of processes that were not necessarily commonplace in our business before. And so getting our members, our customers up to speed with making those reservations online in their account and actually doing the final step of checking out or looking at kind of when things were in and out. It's kind of a logistical nightmare sometimes. So I don't think any of us were really truly ready for how much of a learning curve that was and how much more labor intensive that kind of curbside pickup or even that by appointment setup is. And so that's something I encourage people to think about. Take advantage of free scheduling tools like signup.com. Things like that can really help streamline some of those processes. So the other day I had gotten our bicycles repaired at Mr. Michael's Recycle Bicycles, and Benita had noted that she was literally responding to phone calls every 5 minutes and had just a little paper sheet where she was doing the back and forth with getting everyone their by appointments. And I went, oh my goodness, look at signup.com or any number of other schedulings and tools and save yourself a headache. So definitely take advantage of those, but also think about some of that little minutia. So where are you going to acquire your cleaning supplies, right? So if you're small like us, you'd usually source it from Amazon or you'd source it from your local shop. And that's not as easy or inexpensive. So you have to plan for that, especially if you're looking for what you need in a traditional retail setting. So we found out very early on that we could make small tweaks to our operations. For example, when our tools come back in, they go into a quarantine zone, and then we do a mass disinfect of them at once. And that allows us not to go through as many gloves, for example, and so that helps keep our budget line down a little bit. So that's kind of what the Minnesota Tool Library has been doing and seeing. And for us, we're lucky to be open, but we're also seeing much heavier increase in usage of our services. So because all of our members are at home, many of them have extra time on their hands, they're really looking at what can I get accomplished now. So, and our inventory hasn't massively grown. So usually where maybe a quarter or half of our members might actively be checking something out on any given weekend, now it's somewhere about 80% of our members are all kind of trying to get in and check items out, which is a good problem to have, but it definitely is keeping us busy. And great question from Rebecca. Very, very busy. So it is definitely worth it for us. We've heard very good feedback from our members that it's very much worth it to them to still have that access. And they've been really, really great. Our members have been fabulous at meeting us where we are. And I think that is in part because our communication has been transparent, because we've said, hey, we're reducing our hours, but this is why. And it's to keep you safe. It's to keep our staff safe. Because by only allowing you to check out this one time a week, we can ensure that everything else has been disinfected and that there's no latent virus on a surface. And so I think then people realize, oh, we can do this. And so they've been they've been very happy to engage. And we've actually found that the model that we've started using is being used by most lending libraries now as they're opening back up throughout the world. Are members concerned about lending items? No, surprisingly. And part of that is probably our demographic a little bit, because we do, we have some members who have survived a few world wars and are kind of going, nah, whatever. But we also have a number of members who are really, really health conscious and really concerned. And so we've kind of worked on two fronts. One is we have not put all the onus on the tool library and our staff for disinfecting everything. We have encouraged our members to disinfect their tools personally, like before and after their use. They're asked to disinfect it to protect our staff when they bring it back in, and then we give it another round, and we have that time period. So we've upped our buffer too in terms of how long items are there. So a tool won't come in on Sunday morning and go out Sunday afternoon. It's going to wait a whole week. So that's also taken some logistical pieces. We quarantine for a full week.
Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate your thorough explanation of the tool library. It's great to hear that you're open and that your steps that you've gone through to kind of think through this process. We really appreciate it. Next, we want to introduce Julie Steller. Julie, will you please introduce yourself and kind of let us know how your business has changed during this time?
Sure. I'm Julie Steller, and I have a business called Steller Handcrafted Goods. It all started a number of years ago when I bought a pair of repurposed sweater mittens, which probably most of you have seen, and I fell in love with them. And I always had been very big on reusing and thrifting and all those kinds of things, raising children. We frequented thrift stores a lot. So, and I also had done costume making for some homeschool cooperatives that my children were in, that we did Shakespeare every year. And so we would costume 25 kids a year using things from the thrift store that we would remake. So I was really geared up really inside for this kind of business. I started just on my own, and then in about 2012 had an opportunity to do a huge Scandinavian festival in Minot, believe it or not, Norse Coos Fest. And at that point I met with Women Venture and rebranded and hired some help and began to grow. Steller Goods is known for making useful and beautiful products, repurposing quality wool sweaters. I think wool is a fiber that deserves to be repurposed. And we have also, I actually, if you ever heard about the person that repurposed the Metrodome roof to make patches on mittens, that was me. That was a big jump outside my more artistic realm, but we had a lot of fun with it. We lived right by the stadium and it was part of our family's story. But then we eventually got back to so I repurposed 10,000 square feet of the Metrodome roof at no small price, I will add to that. And there are a few mittens left and keychains. But then we went back to our more artistic repurposing with wool, and have developed quite a Scandinavian niche because we use Swedish braid on a lot of things that we make. We went from just doing mittens to we have about 30 products now. And the thing for me, all the women that worked for me are contract workers. They all work in their own homes. They determine how many like say if they're the mitten sewer, how many mittens they want to sew. And then if it's not enough to meet the demand, we hire another mitten lady. So everyone has a job that's really designed to meet their personal needs. We have grown and we sell both wholesale. About 50% of our sales are wholesale, a small number on the website, something I've wanted to grow. And then the other half of our sales are doing festivals and things like the European Christmas market or the Yule Marknad at Swedish Institute. So things where I am, mostly me, but also sometimes my team, we're going and selling directly to people. So it's a great mix. It's always fun to be able to sell a pair of mittens to a person that's actually going to wear them. And so we've kind of grown organically, slowly. We had a great year last year. We came into 2020 thinking this is going to be even better. I have this network of stores all over the country. And so we start making right away in January. Our, because we're a somewhat seasonal product, not all our products, we make all year, and the majority of our income is fourth quarter. But that means you spend money for 3 quarters. And so that's what we were doing. We were spending money. Everybody is working. We had a great rhythm. I moved out of my basement shop into a shop in Northeast Minneapolis in November. And so we're on this trajectory, making assumptions that there would be opportunities to sell our products. And, I looked back kind of trying to figure out the dates of things, but it was like on March 14th, I found out all my shows through April were canceled. By the 19th, I had moved home and had to furlough all but 2 of my employees. So I had to furlough 10 women, and I just couldn't bear to furlough 2 of them because one was a single mom and one was a young widow. And I knew they really depended on this money. So I just am paying them out of my credit line. Finally, after a week, I realized I had to furlough them too. It was just awful. And all the stores that would be buying my products were closed, and our wholesale market was closed. So within about, I think you all remember this, it was so bewildering that suddenly everything changed. And my income, which had been good in January and February, in March just plummeted. And so I felt those first couple of weeks were just bewildering. And it was, someone sent me an article from Harvard Medical Journal, I think, about grief, and just saying that a lot of us were experiencing grief through this. So that helped. And so then I just started taking naps every day, and I weathered that a little bit better. But I wanted to be creative. I couldn't. I felt like it had just snuffed the creativity out of me, even though I had all this time. And I had already bought tons of sweaters and my raw materials for making product, and was looking and saying, I am looking at a year where I might not have any means of selling these products. So I did start making some masks for my family and my friends and to give away. We go to an Alina clinic, so I donated a bunch of masks to them, and using just stuff out of my own stash. And then I realized there maybe was more that other people were asking, and my team were all sewing for their own circles. But I decided, well, what if we start making them and selling them? And I really resonate with it felt, I had to really work through this whole thing of, this is a huge, terrible thing happening in our community, and is it okay to charge people for the things that I'm making? And I had to work through that a little bit, but when I started hiring people, everyone understood how wonderful it was to be putting people back to work. And that's part of what made it wonderful for me too was providing work to these women that had been really faithful to my company for many years. So we started out charging too little, and then we raised our price, and I just said, when I started, I said, you've put 5 women from the Steller Goods team back to work. Well, then, like Kristin said, you know, I put these on my website. I advertised on Instagram, and I was hit by a tidal wave. There was no way I expected what this was. Usually when you add a new product, you kind of do some development, design, you ramp up slowly, you present it to the public. Well, the public was in on it and wanted it before we had done any of those preparation steps. So those 5 women that started with me, we had a wild 2 weeks trying to keep up with the demand. We used all of our stashes of fabric and elastic. I realized quickly I could not depend on a supply chain that was outside of local, at which point we developed our tie masks so that we wouldn't be dependent on elastic. I'm happy to say, and I was also designing this tie mask. We didn't like the pattern we had, and so we were tweaking our design both on elastic. So you're tweaking, you're making, you're saying to people, can you bring some today? Can you bring them today? It was wild. I couldn't believe it. So now 3 weeks into it, we have, I feel like, ramped up. I have hired all my employees back, plus 4 more people. So we actually have 15 people working now. I have figured out how to do the in and out. We are sourcing from SR Harris, thankfully, to be able to do that, because we've used up I said all of us that have hoarded fabric all these years should feel very smug, because we say, see, we told you we needed that fabric. But now we're having to go beyond that. So I'm sourcing everything locally. I've gotten donations of t-shirts from a music company, and that we can use those for ties. I feel like we've been able to fill some big orders for businesses, and I really feel like we're rolling now. My goal at this point was to be totally independent of having to get anything online. Everything's here. And as far as donating goes, I want to give you guys a really great idea for you to suggest. Our neighborhood organization, I live in Elliott Park, they decided, I do give a discount for I give a 20% discount for businesses with bulk orders or nonprofits. But I still need to charge, because I am paying my people really well. I am making sure all my ladies are making more than $20 an hour, and which is more than I pay them for my other products. So I wonder if they'll be willing to go back. But I really felt like in this time, and with all that this is costing people emotionally and financially, I wanted to raise the bar on what I was going to pay them for their work. So that means I have to charge for my product. And but my neighborhood wanted to give masks away to our high rises. We have a lot of senior high rises, a lot of Section 8. So they raised funds. And I think our little neighborhood has raised $3,000 from churches and businesses in our neighborhood to give away masks. So I just want to throw that out there, that there's several ways that we can do this kind of benevolent giving. I think that they're thrilled that they are paying my workers, putting my people back to work, supporting my business, and also being able to give masks to people that either don't have access or can't afford them. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities to give. I think what we're doing is really valuable work because there is a need. It's going to be an ongoing need. I am hoping that, and now that I've kind of gotten over the hump, now I'm going to do a little more advertising. I was afraid to do more advertising because I couldn't keep up. The other way I want to tell you that was a creative way to sell that I didn't really think through, but we did it, is that twice a week on my front porch, I have a self-serve mask shop. And people, I lay them all out on a table, all the different sizes. We have 2 kid sizes, we have an adult size, we have 2 sizes of tie masks. I lay them all out. There's a sign that says, you can Venmo me, or you can put money, check or cash in the mailbox. And we have sold hundreds of masks off the front porch. If there's more people, they only come up one at a time. People will line up down the sidewalk and leave lots of space between each other. It's been a remarkable experiment. I think people are delighted to be trusted, and it's worked out great for us. I was doing it for like 4 days a week, and I had to kind of change that just for supply and also for my own being kind of in high gear when it's going on. I'm really not down there very much. I pop back and forth, but for the most part, I'm not even down there. So that has really been a fun way to help people save for shipping costs and serve my community, but people come from all over. So those first 2 weeks were not sustainable energy-wise, so I'm really glad we've been able to hire more people, and I am hoping that this will bridge the gap for my business until fall. I don't know. I mean, now back, you know, I said things had been canceled through April. Well, now everything's been canceled through September. So will my stores be ordering? They probably won't be ordering very much, or that's not what they ordered last year. Everything is so unknown. Will there be markets in the fall? I'm guessing no. I might be wrong, but I'm guessing we will not have a lot of those Christmas and holiday markets that we usually enjoy. And so in the meantime, we're going to keep making masks. It's one of my gals got a whole stack of gray, and she, you know, my gals are all very artistic, and they love color and design. And one of my sewers said, I think you should pay me hazard pay for sewing all gray. And, but I didn't. But, you know, we're working it out. And I think that this is going to be a need that people who sew can provide. Not everybody can do this, and we can. And so I feel really grateful to be able to serve the people that are buying from far away on my website or locally in my neighborhood. But I also feel really grateful. For a while there, I thought it was going to be the end of my business. And I'm so thankful that in this surprising, unexpected way, Steller Goods is going to make it financially this year. And then I hope we can get back to cutting up your old wool sweaters and giving them new life and new usefulness. I think that's maybe all that I have to say, but I'm sure open to questions. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Julie. What an amazing story. Roller coaster.
Roller coaster.
Yes, soap opera. Oh, thank you for being able to share that with us too, and to have that bright spot at the end. Definitely. Okay, well, so we've gone through all of our business representatives. Thank you so much for sharing. Now we have Grant, who is from Brio Marketing, who is going to take all of that and kind of pinpoint some of the successes that you can, or the ways you can be successful using the current products in the marketing system that we have right now. You've probably picked up on several of them as you heard from our presenters. And so Grant will share some more about that. Thank you, Grant.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Wow, this is a hard group to follow. I'll do my best here. So I'm Grant Henry. I don't represent a ReUSE business per se. I'm with Brio Marketing. We're a marketing consulting firm, and we serve social enterprises and nonprofits. And through our work with ReUSE Minnesota over the past year, we've become very familiar with your sector and reuse, repair, and rental businesses. And we made some really good friends, and we've created some great partnerships, and there's just some awesome stuff happening in this world. And so we're delighted to be a part of it. The COVID has affected us too, a little bit. We're blessed, we're really nimble, and we're creative, and we're flexible, and most of the organizations that we work with are too. So we've actually been very busy, and we've also taken the opportunity to look at the ways that we serve our clients and to just kind of take a little bit of a step back. And hearing all of this just gives me so much hope that as we work through all of this, we're all evolving ways to work that are sustainable going forward. And I think we've heard 4 stories about that of businesses that have experienced some unexpected but really cool growth. So it's, like I said, it fills me with hope. So, I mean, all of these inspirational stories, how everyone has responded in such a short period of time, like Julie Steller said, it's been such a whirlwind. And such a challenge that we're facing, but we're all rising to it. And I'm a marketing guy, and so I've been reading and webinaring a lot on this topic, and I keep hearing these 2 words. I keep hearing resilience, and I keep hearing pivot. And every time I hear somebody say pivot, and I was talking to Julie Kearns about this a little bit earlier today, it's like I imagine that Friends episode where Ross and Chandler and Rachel are all trying to move this couch up the stairs, and Ross is at the top and he's just shouting, pivot, pivot, and nothing is happening. And he's just, trying, he's banging his head against the wall to get this thing to pivot, and it's just not working. And the businesses that are trying to do that are the ones that are in that same situation. I'm an old basketball coach, and so to me, pivot means that's what you do when you're at the end of your dribble and you run out of options and you're just sort of looking around, but you have options and you can look around and you can go anywhere. And the businesses that are doing that are the ones that are really thriving through all this. So in marketing, we look at the people that you're talking about, and the people, we can really divide people into 2 camps. There's people that you know, and there's people that you don't know. And what marketing is trying to do is get people from one camp into the other camp. So I just want to give you a couple practical tips that you can use based on some of the things that you've heard here and some other stuff that we talk to our clients about these days. We're learning to look for new ways to connect with your market and with your audience, and just don't be afraid to try stuff. We've heard a lot of stories here about masks and Metrodome roofs, and we can't all pivot to masks and Metrodome roofs, but there's still ways that we can find new audiences through new offerings and new channels. And so this is the time to take some of those smart risks and to kind of go back into your brain and think about the things that you always wanted to do. Partly because there's fewer people that are looking at you and because they're focused on other things, but also more people are looking at you. And that's not really a paradox, but think about it as we talk through some of these things. There's some examples here. I mean, Julie Kearns, Kristin, Julie Steller, Kate, I mean, everybody has basically found a need and filled it. And that's really the easiest way to find a new kind of market is to listen. Another great example of an organization here in the Twin Cities that's doing a good job of this is the Terra Market. They have, by listening to their customers and building those relationships, they're changing the way that they operate, and they're changing the way that they do their business, but they're still serving their core mission. And that's really kind of key to it, is making sure that these new things that we're trying aren't off-brand, and they're still in line with the mission and the purpose that you have that put you into business in the first place. Another thing to do is to look for the partnerships and look for the collaborations. The thing that we love about working with social enterprises is that all the businesses are really on the same side. It's a co-opetition sort of thing where we're operating businesses and we're answering to a profit motive, but we're also looking at serving a mission and serving other goals. And so when our competitors succeed, we applaud that. And we think that that's awesome. And I think that that's great. So if you're in a situation where you can help one of your, another business, think creatively, think horizontally, think vertically, think diagonally, like a jigsaw puzzle, everything fits together. Julie Kearns has done a a partnership with Twin Cities Food Justice. She didn't talk about that, but using their food rescue drivers to deliver has been a great idea. I want to say a couple things about marketing channels. It's like Kate said, this is an opportunity to step back, indulge in some balcony time, look at the big picture. On your website, it's a good thing to look at here. Try to identify some areas for improvement. You don't have to do a big bang relaunch. The days of that being the only way to reboot your website are really behind us. You can look at some more agile and iterative approaches that'll let you address your websites more modularly. Look at your email. And don't be so worried about quantity. Don't be so worried about the size of your list. Concentrate on the quality and making sure that the metrics behind it are doing what you want it to do. Your open rates and your click rates. Finally, looking at your social media. We look at a content matrix where we ask people to think about the kinds of stories that you're telling. Excuse me. Kristin, for example, is doing a really great job of, we talked about this, being more vulnerable and being more transparent and being more authentic. And we think that that is it's a valuable thing to do in this time because people will relate to you. And it's better to create that relationship between you and your customers if you are more transparent that way. The second thing I want to talk about is leaning into your impact. It's important to remember that your business has a mission and it has a purpose. And you live that mission every day, but your community doesn't. And so they need to be reminded of it. You're in the business and you're in it to make a difference, but don't take that for granted. Just because it's obvious to you, it doesn't mean it's obvious to those two kinds of people that you need to communicate with. So lean into it. Lean into the economic impact. Lean into the environmental impact. And lean into the social impact. Think about the activities that you're performing and what outcomes come out of those activities. And then finally, the impact is really the value that those outcomes create. So for example, if you think about rental of cross-country skis. If you're outfitting a family of 4 with cross-country skis and gear, that's $1,000. That's $1,500 if you go to Hoy Guards. At the end of the day, a family has a fun day of cross-country skiing. They're not doing anything else. And if that same family goes and rents those skis, you get the same outcome. You get the day of cross-country skiing, but you've also generated some value. You've generated a renewed appreciation of the outdoors, some physical exercise, some family bonding, some things that at a higher price point of $1,500 is not available to a lot of people, but at a lower price point, a rental business is providing that same value that wouldn't have occurred the other way. Also, skis in that situation, they aren't being manufactured, so the raw materials aren't being consumed, the transportation and the shipping, none of that is happening. And all of those things have value. So, different kinds of businesses have social impact around the staff or the volunteers that you employ. It's jobs creation, skills development, opportunities for underserved communities. All these things contribute to your impact and the value that you add over just making a living for yourself and for your employees. So lean into those. It's a more emotional appeal. It talks really more to the way that people feel about your business, but it's worthwhile. And then finally, just think about your thought leadership. You're all experts. You've gone into this business because you want to make a difference, and something matters to you. And I think that there's an audience out there that's much more receptive to your story than they were a couple months ago, because the world has paused, and we've all seen what happens. And some of it's bad, and some of it's tragic, but some of it's also good, and even redemptive. And even though some of those things are tragic and scary, they make people receptive to the story that you have to tell about your business and about your work and about the mission that's wrapped up in it. So sit down with that thing that drives you and the thing that you know something about and are very familiar with. It's whether it's zero waste, climate crisis, economic justice, social justice, whatever it is there's stories that are tucked in there, and you have that expertise and you have a unique perspective. And because people are listening now, this is a great time to spend the effort and get your thoughts out there in the world.
Thank you so much, Grant.
Yeah.
Oh, were you going to say something else?
Nope.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
That's a perfect wrap up to conclude what everyone's saying. I'll give a few minutes of if anyone wants to share any other questions in the chat. For now, if you, maybe a main question, we're wrapping up here, maybe a very quick speed question going through everyone. What has been your biggest surprise with communication during this time? And let's start then with Kristin.
Hey, biggest surprise with communication. Well, I mean, going from being an extrovert and loving being around people all the time, and then very quickly pivoting to having that same interaction, but only in online communication form. That just took, obviously a bit of getting used to. But there's been a lot more like quick little interactions of like people like encouraging and people using social media in different ways that they didn't before, where I feel like some of those interactions are even more, they are just more meaningful than they were before, and people are using them as ways to connect. Certainly, I've definitely used it a little bit differently over the last month or so, just trying to give people ideas of how to kind of get through, and using it also because now I'm going back to stay-at-home mom mode and then working after that, trying to give using my communications to be like, hey, here's a parenting idea because you're probably feeling a little crazy today, so try this. And I think that goes back to what Grant was saying about don't be afraid to try new things. And I hadn't really posted my mom life part on there before, and it's been just fun to just try different things and see if it sticks. And people have been really great and really receptive, and that's been a really special thing in all of this.
Jenny, I'm not sure if you're going to introduce us, so I'll just pop in here. Kristin, thank you for sharing that. Gosh, for me, for most of the time I was running the retail shop, and even prior to that, I was very online, very transparent about life as a single parent and bootstrapping and all of the things. Really, part of Junket's beginning story was about the end of a marriage right as I became a new mother. And so I have, in the last 2 years, really stepped back from being quite that exposed in terms of my personal life. But the other thing that had happened, or that I've been looking at, is the branding that we did for Junket came of age during what I like to call the golden era of social media. We were able to, we were promoting in 2010, 2011. I was doing some paid advertising in 2011, 2012, where I could expect to get 100,000 hits for $100 for a weekend sale. And so, but we didn't do video, and I've been intimidated by video. That's my, confession and vulnerability. And so this last 6 weeks or so, just all of the Zoom meetings, seeing myself on screen, right? Getting used to the technology and feeling comfortable with it, leads me to, as I tend to think a ways out in the future, and so as I'm gearing up here, the idea is that I will be more comfortable using this, and it feels good to be moving past my little static constraints. So we have not been managing a whole lot of social media during this time. We've been really focused on getting the masks up and running, and getting that nailed so that we can begin to promote a little more heavily again. But I look forward to finding time to write again. That has not been happening the last couple of weeks, but looking forward to that as well. That would be what I've got to offer.
Great. Thanks, Julie. And I totally did introduce you. I just did a facilitator faux pas and I was on mute. So, oh, embarrassing. Oh, well. All right, Kate, any surprises for you in communication?
I think for us, you know, we have a very small crew and they're not necessarily the most tech savvy. And our member demographics are all over the place. So for us, it's really been leveraging all of our different communication models, encouraging volunteers to basically be our social media people. So for example, I cannot Instagram for my life, but we do have some of our younger members who are only on Instagram and others who are only on Facebook. So I think it's important to know your strengths, right? So if you're not super tech savvy, don't try to do everything, and this may not be the time to like jump on a totally new system you don't know, but it may be a time to explore a new facet of a system you utilize already. So we already utilize Facebook. We have that presence, but now we're probably posting about 10 times as often. And we're posting content from other partners and new partners and using that as a way hopefully to explore future partnerships and kind of build relationships with that. We know our classes do not translate well, right, into video. Our hands-on classes, that's just not our forte. So we could really push our volunteers and our staff really hard to create an online class, which would not be terribly great quality. Or we can leverage other people's videos and just say, nope, we're putting classes on hold until October, and that's what we've decided to do. So I think kind of pick and choose. You know, we're exploring an online store in Square, and so part of that is just trying it out. You know, we also did a phone campaign. So we took this time and we literally called members and we're kind of halfway through it, but not as a sales pitch, as a like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on with you? Just a nice check-in. And I think that's been a really great way to maintain those relationships. And so if you have, you know, if you have your super users, your super customers, give them a call or shoot them an email that's not, here's our programming, or here's this new product that we have, or we want you to donate for Give to the Max Day, although take advantage of those, take advantage of the payroll protection program if that's something that makes sense. But just kind of touch base and say, hey, and I've been amazed at how many inquiries we've gotten from people, not only asking about logistical pieces, but then telling us other stories. And our members have started to take the time, because they have the time, to show us more of our projects. And so just kind of leveraging that in whatever way you can, and keeping that messaging inspirational, keeping it supportive, keeping it timely. So whether that's your face mask campaign, or, you know, for us, we're doing a lot of gardening tips and working with people on victory gardens and maintaining their food supply and local resources like that. Just kind of explore and meet people and chat with them via email, and just try to be as responsive as you can without burning yourself out, because you are only one person or a small team of people, and there are many, many more members, clients, customers who are all at home and looking to you. So I think that's been intriguing, knowing that we have to unplug sometimes, right? And go, I'm not going to answer that email at 11. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Kate. Yeah. And then Julie Steller, any big surprise for you for communication?
Well, I think I was totally surprised at just what a few posts on Instagram and Facebook could result in. It's kind of what you always hope would happen with your products. And so that's been really astonishing, and a lot of people sharing my posts. I am going to, now that we have built up supply and I feel like we have can know how many masks we can make in a week. I'm going to do outreach to my mailing list and my stores. I did it to my stores right when my wholesale market was canceled, just to say, I'm so sorry about all this, and I hope that we'll be all together again soon. And it was more of a personal one. And so I'd like to reach out to them again, but also the people that are on my general mailing list, which is I do through MailChimp, which I really hate making those things. That's not my strong suit, so I empathize with people who say that's harder. But I feel like I've collected a lot of names on my front porch store, and so I'm going to communicate that way and see what kind of a bounce back I get. So I think now that I'm out of the crazy part, or where it felt so out of control, now I can do some of that thinking. And I really appreciate what Grant had to share in some of the insights about, the people you know and the people you don't know, and how can we move people into that I know you group. But I do think all of our communication has to be full of humanity and empathy, and I mean, that is one of the beautiful things about this, if you could say that, is this solidarity and caring for people. I know for me, I am home. I barely leave the house. My ladies come and we do an exchange on the porch, but my 85-year-old mother lives with me. So I haven't set foot in a store in weeks. And my kids have risen to it's wonderful the way the community has served one another. I love that. And I think we're all doing our part to serve too. And I think we can communicate that when we are saying, I've got masks available on my front porch, or you can, you can come and rent a shovel to turn your dirt over. I just like it. I've loved hearing everybody's stories, because I feel like we all have had a calling and a passion in our lives, and we have pivoted. And I know that story from friends. I love it. And we've pivoted, and we're still serving, and we've reacted to what's been served up to us right now in the reality of this world. And I think to be able to do it with love and concern and compassion is a wonderful, wonderful thing for us to be able to do. So I'm glad to be in league with all of you.
Oh, what a great way to end a webinar. Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you all for sharing. If you have any other questions, you can certainly email info@reusemn.org, and we will be sharing out the recording and notes with everyone who's signed up. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.